In this video, we look at what should we think about when we decide to enter a foreign market. So when we do think about entering into a foreign market, what are some of the items that should be considered? So first is to determine, do we want to have trade, which is export-import, or do we want to have direct investment? Direct investment where we are investing in the physical structure, the physical business, the physical manufacturing process within the foreign country. So do we want to, again, have trade, or do we want to have a physical investment? And so for trade, what do we look at? So export, import, where is the advantage? So if the advantage is based on the firm's specific resources, if it is based upon the firm's management, specific employee knowledge there of the employees in the home country, and the advantage is based upon management practices within the home country, it is more advantageous to have trade, export, import. If it is easy to license the technology, the product, or the business process, it is more advantageous to have trade. If the customer preferences are reasonably similar between the two countries, so we can have one product in our country and that same product in the foreign country, again, it is more advantageous to trade. If the prospective host company's political climate is unpredictable, and therefore it is difficult to appropriate the profits, therefore the profits that we are making in that foreign country from our direct investment, then obviously it is much more advantageous to have an export-import based relationship than to have direct foreign investment. Also, if we as a company do not yet have that sufficient excess capital to invest in our manufacturing process overseas, or if we do not have the full range of resources and capabilities that would allow us to establish that competitive advantage in that overseas market, again, it is more advantageous for us as a company, as a firm, to trade, export, import, to sell. It is more advantageous for us to trade than it is for us to have direct foreign investment. However, on the flip side, it is more advantageous to have foreign direct investment when the product is not tradable, when the local demand for the product features shift, when that demand is different, that the consumers in the foreign country are very quick, very demanding. They want certain types of features, and those features change often or may change often. Then at that point, it's better to have foreign direct investment. You are closer to it, to the consumers. You are able to understand their specific desires. You are able to make changes more quickly in that foreign country than you are to make those changes that are that change in demand, that those product features that are that need to change more rapidly. You just don't have a good basis there to make those changes if you're making those changes here in the States, for example. Also, if the preferences are different between one country and another country. So if so, then it doesn't do any good to manufacture that good in the United States and then try to sell it into a foreign country, because their wants and needs from a product perspective, product specifics are different. Also, if there are high barriers to entry, such as transportation, such as import restrictions or tariffs, high taxes, it is more advantageous to have a direct foreign investment. If the exchange rate risks are high between the US dollar and the other currency, it is better to do what? To have your direct foreign investment there. If the plant setup costs are relatively low, with regard to those transaction costs. So the transaction costs being higher, what are those transaction costs? It can be contract costs. It can be trying not only the contract itself, but trying to enforce that contract as well. So if those plant setup costs are relatively low and the size of the foreign market is relatively high, then it would be more advantageous to have foreign direct investment. And as well, if you have advantages in local vertical integration as far as the suppliers, as far as so primary being the raw materials there that you need to create your good. The secondary is that manufacturing process, anything that transforms those raw materials into a good. And then the third, tertiary, would be to actually distribute that good and sell that good and service that good. So if you have advantages there, if you can have that local vertical integration, it is more advantageous to have foreign direct investment. So when we look at the advantages or disadvantages between trade, export, import, selling, and foreign direct investment, you look at as well the market drivers. So market drivers from a trade perspective, selling perspective, export, imports perspective, those market drivers are common customer needs, global customers, cross-border network effects. Are we able to have a particular product that will appeal to a broader group? Whereas those market drivers for foreign direct investment, on the other hand, not the selling, not the export import, but actually creating or building a manufacturing facility, for example, in the foreign country. What are those market drivers that require that foreign direct investment? If you've got a difference in languages, for example, if you have a difference in customer preferences, if you have a difference in cultural ideas and thoughts, you need to be able to understand, what does the consumer want? How can we best narrow or shape our product that it meets those individual consumers? So we may try to sell to a client or a consumer in China. We may try to sell to another one in Morocco. We may try to sell to another one in the UK. Those are clearly three different types of consumer. And so therefore, foreign direct investment would be more advantageous there than trying to create a single product in the United States, or to even create three products in the United States and to sell to those three different places, because how well are we going to know our customer? We are so far removed from our customer that we don't understand our customers' needs. Other drivers, so those two were market drivers, cost drivers. So from a trade perspective, export, import, what are the cost drivers? Global scale economics. How big can we get? So the greater our scale, the smaller or the less is our per unit cost. So in that case, it would definitely be trade rather than foreign direct investment. So if we can create, if the products are basically the same, then we can produce a lot of those, and therefore our per unit cost is much lower. Also, if we have differences in national resource availability, so that we do not have that access to those resources in the other countries, perhaps we need some specialized work that is done, and that understanding, that specialized knowledge is in one country or a second or a third country, but not in the countries that we are actually trying to produce and sell to, then that is definitely a cost driver that leans toward producing within the home country. Again, that trade, that import, export, and then as well, just the learning there, understanding what it is that we need to do and processing through, going through those steps. Those would be all drivers for trade and not foreign direct investment. But you think of, okay, well, what are the cost drivers for foreign direct investment? It's your transportation costs. If your transportation costs are so high that they basically negate whatever other cost savings that you would have by producing, even if the goods are basically the same, if your transportation costs are so high, then you would want to have foreign direct investment, so you would not be spending those costs for that transportation every time. If your transaction costs, going back again, how are we monitoring those contracts? How are we getting our contracts with our suppliers? How are we able to have contracts with our distributors? If it is so far away for us to do that effectively, that is a cost driver that would make it more advantageous for us to actually have direct foreign investment, because it would be actually much easier to manage and create those types of contracts, as well. If your economic and political risk and speed of response, thinking about what is that risk for us. Is it better perhaps to have, depending, now that's a fine line. That's a fine line. You can think of as well, perhaps it's better from a political standpoint to take a minority interest, so maybe a 49% stake, and have the host country to have that 51% stake. So that is a way to get around it, where you are not viewed as the American imperialist, for example. You are viewed as, oh, this is a host country operation, it's a host country company, but you happen to own 49% of that, and therefore will take 49% of the profit. So that is another inducement. Again, it's a fine line, but that is another inducement for foreign direct investment. When we look at competitive drivers, we look at that potential for strategic competition. We look at, can we cross subsidize? Can we use that knowledge to trade, export, import those essentially identical products and services? Can we take that knowledge and converge and concentrate that knowledge so that we can get better and better and better at that particular type of product or service? And so that would be an inducement to have trade rather than to have foreign direct investment. However, if there are government drivers for foreign direct investment, so maybe there be barriers to trade that you are not allowed unless it is unless you happen to have a minority stake in a particular country, or if the taxes are really high for you to be a foreign company, you want to be a local company there, or if the general feeling is for a more patriotic host country business, that perhaps there had been prior issues with other non-host company countries coming in, non-host company companies coming in, I should say, and exploiting the resources, generally primary resources, exploiting those resources in the way that in the negative aspect of exploitation. So if that has taken place, again, that would lend itself toward direct foreign investment, because what are you doing with direct foreign investment? A lot of times, especially if it's a mining company, what do? They help build the roads, they help build the schools, they help build the housing, they help build medical, they help build the economy. So you've got people there that have to have someplace to sleep, they have to have someplace to eat. So therefore, that mining company that happens to be in that host country does do what? Help to benefit in much greater perspective, if you will, help to benefit economically the host company. So that would, the host country. So that would definitely lend itself as well to induce you to have foreign direct investment, and as well to garner that goodwill that you can garner there. So one thing that you can think of as well is alliances. So alliances do what? Alliances help you to have access to resources and capabilities that you might not have otherwise. So that it's having someone on the inside there working with that other company, and as well, you are seen as much more of a local company because you are that you got that alliance. So you're not completely local like that direct investment. However, you are much closer to it. So foreign direct investment on your own, you can have foreign direct investment with an alliance as well, but it does allow you to have, again, an insider there to help you and to hold your hand as you walk through. Franchises as well help they are less risky, and franchises allow national preferences. So what may be franchise from McDonald's, for example, franchise in Paris, in the McDonald's in Paris, they'll have beer, so they will sell beer, as well as Coke and Pepsi and any soft drink. However, beer is not sold in the United States at McDonald's, but those franchises do allow you to have to adapt to the national preferences. Then finally, when we're thinking of expanding internationally, what do we need to consider? We need to consider, if it is going to be foreign direct investment, where do we locate the manufacturing production facilities? So depending upon what the actual good is, depending upon what the business is, if it is for an extraction type business like oil, gas, minerals, obviously you want to locate near the minerals, the oil, the gas, as well as agriculture, because it will save you on the transportation. As well, it saves in the business process. for an example, minerals, you have to process a huge amount of material, say earth, dirt, so that you can extract the small amounts of mineral, for example, so copper or gold or iron. Also, you want to locate where you have access to specialized resources and capabilities, those specialized labor skills. You want to focus on what that operational efficiency. You don't just focus on the lowest wage. You focus on where the knowledge is. Don't forget, we had spoken earlier about that comparative advantage. Used to be, it was just low wages and the oil, the actual primary materials. And now that is changing toward that local knowledge, that local infrastructure. So when we think about where are we going to locate our manufacturing facility, we want to be able to take advantage of that type of local knowledge, not just the low wage. As well, we want to look at the transportation. How hard is it to move our product back and forth, going back to the minerals, the copper or the silver, for example. As well, look at your value chain. And so when we think of Apple, for example, and looking at the iPhone, there are various pieces that are finally the assembly is in China, but there are parts that are bought in Japan. There are other parts from Germany, for example. There are parts from the United States. And again, think of what is the value chain, that complete value chain, and which countries, because of the cluster of industries there, the cluster of that local knowledge, where that local knowledge is the greatest, where should we place that value chain? So different countries do offer different advantages at different stages of the value chain. However, our greatest driver is not the cost, is not the low wage cost at this point. The greatest driver is what the operational efficiency of that whole chain. So we should not forget coordination of the work, of the practices. We should not forget the speed. How quickly can we get one link of the chain to the next link? We should not forget the reliability of the delivery. We should not forget our integrated operations, our fast access to the final market. If those things, speed, reliability of delivery, fast access to the final market, if those are your key success factors, then most likely it is not in your best interest to fragment that value chain over multiple countries if you are going to have it over a few. But think of Zara, for example, the Spanish clothing store, where one of their claims to fame is being able to get a new line out every 3 weeks. They don't have time to be getting those to take advantage of the lower wages in another country. They produce those clothes within Spain, even though they're spending more money per unit within Spain for that labor. However, they rely on the speed of that new line. They rely on that delivery, that fast access to the final market. So these are the items that we should also consider when we do think about foreign direct investment.